It is such a good time to be a Final Fantasy fan. Hey everyone, what up, Kaiser here, and man oh man, are things heating up for Final Fantasy, possibly next month and now likely this week. And there's tons of things to look forward to, since next month will be where Naughty 3, where the Summer Game Fest will happen around June 9th, as well as the Xbox Bethesda showcase and a bunch of other showcases, with possibly maybe a PlayStation showcase and Nintendo Direct also coming in as well. And yeah, there's just lots of things to look forward to regarding Final Fantasy, since this is most likely when next month is when we'll finally get the new trailer for Final Fantasy 16, since Yoshi P did say that the new trailer has been completed, but there was several factors that made it delayed, and this is the time that, and he did promise that we will get an update for Final Fantasy 16 this spring, and spring, at least around America and Japan time, if I am correct, ends right around June 20th, so that is very nice. I'm looking forward to Final Fantasy 16. And also such, Tetsuya Nomura did tease that next month will be when they'll show Final Fantasy VII 25th anniversary, and it could mean just a bunch of things, this might be a chance that they might reveal the Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, maybe even a tease of it, a trailer or so, as well as some other things that have been trademarked recently, say Final Fantasy VII Remake Integrate, which I'm surprised again that hasn't been already trademarked, since it was already out for the PlayStation 5 and PC via Epic Game Store. But that could mean that maybe, just maybe, an Xbox port might come after 2 whole years, and maybe also Steam if possible. And also there's other two things the Final Fantasy, there's also Final Bar Line and Labyrinth Striker, which could be 2 new spin-offs. That's all good. And it's stated from the I believe that Square Enix had announcements that Final Fantasy 35th anniversary celebration are most likely coming at the end of this month or next month. And as such, it is possible that we are just going to get a bunch of Final Fantasy stuff. Now I bring this to talk about another possible third Final Fantasy announcement, one that has technically been announced but not fully shown yet, and that is Final Fantasy IX animated series. Now I believe somewhere around last year that there were reports that Final Fantasy IX is getting its own animated cartoon made by a French studio called Cyber Group Studios. And as such, at first it was a bit left outfield, as not only was it aiming for a younger demographic, but also it was in production around the end of last year to the beginning of this year, as they said. And we didn't know why they were doing this all of a sudden, since Final Fantasy IX is about, I think, 22 years old as the time is, I think so. But then there was the whole Nvidia GeForce leak that came out that was revealed last year, that showed a bunch of speculative titles, and as time goes by, majority of it has become true. In fact, I dare say that a lot of things have come true from the Nvidia GeForce leak, which revealed a bunch of upcoming projects and games. And things for the Square Enix side have been most likely confirmed, such as the Chrono Cross remaster, which was true, Final Fantasy VII Remake coming to PC, also true, and Kingdom Hearts 4 also coming true. And then there's also the Tomb Raider anniversary, which might be the new Tomb Raider game that's been announced that will use Unreal Engine 5. And as such, I believe that now that game is, since the people who are making it, or I think the current people who are making it, have been moved to Embracer Group, since Square Enix did sell a majority of their Western branch to Embracer Group, including Eidos Montreal and I believe Crystal Dynamics. But yeah, the only things that are left to announce are, I believe, is Final Fantasy Tactics Remaster, and there's also Final Fantasy 16 also there, which could be, a PC port, which is probably obvious, like maybe it's after like a few years of the PlayStation 5 timed exclusivity they have for that game. But yeah, and there's of course Final Fantasy IX Remake, and yes, Final Fantasy IX Remake. Now, here's the things we have to say about the show itself. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it says here that they've talked with the VP of International Licensing and Marketing at Cybergroup Studios, Bruno Danzo Diamant. I hope I'm saying that right. And here are some of the things he says here, like this one in particular, and that is, at the Licensing Expo, we will of course continue to promote our global preschool property Gigantosaurus with new content to come internationally. It will be a great opportunity to share our upcoming plans with our licensees, agents, and new partners. Additionally, our most recent developed shows, Digital Girl, The McFire Family, Press Start, and Final Fantasy IX will be presented for the first time. These 4 new series have a strong licensing appeal for different age targets. And as such, let us see, and here it is. And as such, the Licensing Expo 2022, which is where they'll present these things, will take place live and online from Tuesday May 24th to Thursday, May 26th, and you can register free at licensingexpo.com. So yeah, it'll be taking place live and online. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. Now, it's very interesting because at first when people heard about Final Fantasy IX getting an animated series, people were like, what? And as such, and at first it didn't make sense, and neither did the rumoured Final Fantasy IX Remake, but now when you piece the things together, it does seem that this whole Final Fantasy IX animated series is pretty much a companion piece to Final Fantasy IX Remake. Like, that's what could be like promotion material, similar to like how the Twiri anime was the promotion material for Neo Twiri, the game. So yeah, and to be honest, Square Enix does do a lot of animated stuff when it comes to the games, including Final Fantasy, especially when it comes to like Final Fantasy 15, the Kingsglaive, and Brotherhood. But they also did Final Fantasy, the Spirits Within, and we don't talk about that. So yeah, it's pretty interesting on how Cybergroup Studios is going to handle Final Fantasy IX, the animated series, because as some of you probably know, that me becoming a new Final Fantasy fan, I love Final Fantasy IX. Like, it's one of my favorite Final Fantasy games, and it's actually what made me fall in love with the series. Like, after I played Final Fantasy 13 and Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 1 and enjoyed them, Final Fantasy IX was where I really loved the series as a whole and made me the fan I am now. Like, I really love Final Fantasy IX. I'm just to see on how this show handles the story, animation, and characters, and the same applies to the Final Fantasy IX Remake. It really depends also on who's also making Final Fantasy IX Remake, because as it currently stands, a lot of Square's major business divisions are busy with their own projects, like CPU 1 is focused on Final Fantasy VII Remake and its parts, including Final Fantasy VII Remake Part 2, and the rest of CPU 1 will focus on Kingdom Hearts, especially Kingdom Hearts 4 now that has been announced, with other smaller teams working on possibly things like Final Fantasy VII, like Ever Crisis, The First Soldier, and those spin-offs I mentioned, and Kingdom Hearts like Missing Link, and also, the Dark Road finale. And as for CPU 3, they're the ones focusing on Final Fantasy 14 and the numerous amount of updates and expansions it will have over the years, and of course Final Fantasy 16. And as for the other creative business units, mainly 2 and 4, 2 mainly focuses on Dragon Quest and Bravely, and I believe Dragon Quest and the Bravely series, and also Nier. And with Dragon Quest 12 being announced, I'm pretty sure CPU 2 has a work cut out for that, as well as the fact that Bravely, mainly Team Asano, would mostly focus on stuff like the live HD remake and possibly even the Dragon Quest 3 HD 2D remake. And as for Nier, well, there's Nier Reincarnation, but I'm not sure if maybe Nier will get an upcoming game. Maybe, since Replicant, the remaster of Replicant and Automata were a success. So hopefully. As for CPU 4, it's mostly on the mana stuff. And while you may possibly, think that some of those people would make Final Fantasy IX Remake, chances are Final Fantasy IX could be, outsourced. Now, it's not too safe to say that outsourcing a sensitive project like Final Fantasy IX Remake is, a stupid idea that Square would even do, given that in the past, Square did lend CyberConnect 2 to originally make Final Fantasy VII Remake, till eventually they got kicked out and decided to do it themselves. But, that is just an exception in our rule, because there have been many Final Fantasy, Square Enix projects, major ones that were handled, by outsourced people, such as Platinum Games handling Nier with Nier Automata, and even other stuff like Koei Tecmo and Team Ninja doing Stranger of Paradise, and the City of Final Fantasy and that game also sucks. That game sucks. Okay, never mind. Point is, there's a chance it may be, outsourced, and who knows, maybe it could even, be well handled. But yeah, that's about it. So Final Fantasy IX, the animated series, is likely to be shown tomorrow or just a few days after. And I'm really interested to see on how it goes, and maybe, if Final Fantasy IX Remake, Final Fantasy IX, the animated series, does get teased and has a release date, and maybe it's shown, when it's aired and all that stuff, is when we will get, Final Fantasy IX Remake's official announcement. They will officially announce, the cat will be out of the bag, and all that stuff. But anyway guys, that's it for me. There's a lot of things to look forward to if you're a Final Fantasy fan. So let me know guys in the comments below. Are you looking forward to Final Fantasy IX the animated series? Are you looking forward to Final Fantasy IX Remake? Let me know in the comments down below. So anyway guys, thank you guys so much for watching. So punch that like button, drop down a comment, and click that subscribe button if you're new. Now see you guys in the next video. Mad Kaiser out.